Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, April the 2nd, 2025, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm host of the most, Will Buchanan, on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast. What does that mean? That means we only do the most reputable research from areas that have award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, where extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. At the same time, guys, we do actually make show things that might be too graphic for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, we're actually going to start off with some somber news because even though we have just gotten through April Fool's Day, we actually have to pay our respects to a great actor that has went on to the great beyond.
You figured it out yet? What's that? Who's the best pilot?
This morning, Hollywood is remembering a cool, charismatic, and confident on-screen star.
You can be my wingman anytime.
Val Kilmer, who took on iconic roles from Iceman to Batman.
It's the car, right? Chicks love the car.
He passed away at the age of 65, his daughter says, from pneumonia. Actor Josh Brolin summed up the star's on-screen persona in a tribute, writing, "You were a smart, challenging, brave, uber-creative firecracker. There's not a lot left of those." Born in Los Angeles in 1959, Kilmer became one of the youngest students admitted to the Juilliard School's acting program. His early roles were in comedies, Top Secret and Real Genius, but his big break came in 1986's Top Gun, where he starred as cocky naval pilot Iceman opposite Tom Cruise.
What's your problem, Kazansky? You're everyone's problem. That's because every time you go up in the air, you're unsafe.
He cemented his leading man status playing legendary rocker Jim Morrison in the Oliver Stone-directed The Doors.
I'm the poet and you're my muse.
Following it up with a star-making run of 90s movies, including Tombstone.
That's the rumor.
And Heat, starring opposite Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. In 1995, Kilmer took on his biggest role yet, the Caped Crusader in Batman Forever.
If Bruce Wayne could have given his life for your family, he would have.
The movie was a hit, though Kilmer did not play Batman again. The method actor famously going to great lengths for his roles. In 1996, talking about his bad boy image on Today.
Michael Douglas helped me to understand, although it's kind of saddening, but he said really it's a compliment if you get they don't write about people they're not interested in.
He faced health struggles in later years, diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014. Though he recovered after several operations, his voice was never the same. In 2021, he reflected on his career in the documentary Val.
I've tried to hear the world I don't want to survive.
Kilmer had forged on, staying in the Hollywood mix. His most memorable later role came alongside an old friend.
Who's the better pilot? You or me?
Top Gun Maverick would be Kilmer's last appearance on screen.
Perhaps the most famous line Kilmer ever delivered was the one we played a little bit ago from Tombstone when he said, "I'm your huckleberry." That was actually the title of his memoir. In it, he admitted he did not initially want the role of the Iceman in Top Gun, saying he didn't really care about the film and felt more deflated than inflated when he got the part. Obviously, in the end, it worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah. I could see.
Yeah, it worked out very well for him in the end. Again, fantastic actor. I got introduced to him through Top Gun and Tombstone because that's still one of my favorite Westerns. Simply put, because he played the role of Doc Holliday, especially the fact that, you know, if you can quote, look, if you quote Tombstone, I quote Tombstone, I'm always sitting there saying, say when, or if you're a daisy if you do. I'm usually that cat. But again, Life well lived. Definitely rest in peace. Especially Batman Forever, because again, you gave us a great Bruce Wayne, great Batman, no matter how he cut it. But anyway, rest in peace. Just want to say as a Batman fan. So, also, history was also made not too long ago. Why? Because Cory Booker did something that hasn't been done, well, since a racist guy decided to stand in front of Congress to a filibuster. Senator Cory Booker did the same thing at nearly over 25 hours of speaking. Yes, you heard me, 25 hours.
Democratic Senator Cory Booker is just about to break the record for longest filibuster. We want to look at this live right now. This is a live look at the House floor. The New Jersey senator has officially been speaking for about 24 hours and 19 minutes straight. There was a small break with a chaplain that came in for a while, but he has been going nonstop. He now surpasses the record held by the late Senator Strom Thurmond, who filibustered for 24 hours and 18 minutes in 1957 in opposition of the Civil Rights Act. Let's listen in to Cory Booker.
Proud America is of you.
Julie Circuit is following this for us. And Julie, Senator Booker had been rallying against President Trump and his second term. Tell us more about what he was talking about throughout that day in this filibuster.
24 hours, Tom, and 19 minutes, and Senator Cory Booker has broken this record. He was talking about everything that the Trump administration has done in the first 2 months that Booker says has harmed and will continue to harm Americans. He stayed on message, which is rare and notable for even the list of the longest speeches before him. Some read children's books, some quote something entirely off message, but Booker here talking about education, about immigration, about the cuts to the federal government, ending in the last 20 minutes before he officially broke this record, talking about the legacy of the late John Lewis, of course, his legacy in the civil rights movement, which is notable in terms of Booker breaking the record because the person that he took that record from was Democrat Strom Thurmond, who in 1957 spoke on the floor for a long time in what's known as a filibuster to try and prevent the Civil Rights Act from passing. And now Booker becoming the first Black man, the senator from New Jersey, to reach this point and to take that record for himself.
Yeah, quite the irony there in history. We should also mention, right, Democrats are looking for some momentum, if you will, some energy within the party as the party sort of looks to pick up the pieces after the 2024 presidential election. It feels like, and it looks like Senator Cory Booker, at least on the Democratic side, is trying to meet that moment.
Absolutely. He is trying to meet that moment, especially when they were home in the last couple of weeks during recess and heard from voters the immense anger, the palpable frustration that the Democratic base has right now at their party leadership in Washington. And you can't see it at home, but the Senate gallery around the entire perimeter of it is full with people who came here to hear Cory Booker's speech. That is who he was looking up at and kind of placing his hand on his heart as they applauded him and stood in a standing ovation. There are also people outside of the Capitol, by the way. One woman a couple of moments ago, spotted by somebody on our team, had a sign thanking Booker for using his voice. They were listening to it, had a little speaker near them. And so here, obviously, Booker using this moment, again, not in this case filibustering any specific piece of legislation. There's nothing on the calendar for the Senate to work on today or tomorrow, but using this moment to make sure that voters who want to support Democrats are hearing from somebody who potentially wants to be in leadership, maybe even another run for president in 2028. I couldn't help but notice some of the language he used there in praising and giving thanks to the late John Lewis that kind of hinted at that perhaps, but certainly Democrats looking to fill that void that they have right now. The speech isn't going to do it, but it's a sign that they are using their very limited power in the minority, Tom, to speak up and speak out as much as they can.
So again, one definitely give congratulations to Senator Cory Booker for actually becoming the longest filibuster ever done. I think he clocked out a little bit over 25 hours, give or take, but still beats racist, segregationist Strom Thurmond back then in 1957. And a lot of people are by saying, well, what does this got to do with anything? Well, Democrats, you should have learned from the most recent election basically what to do. Now it is time to strategize, organize, and mobilize is what you should be doing. And yes, giving a filibuster may slow the wheels down a little bit, but at the same time, Democrats should move forward. We saw AOC and Bernie Sanders do a oligarchy tour in which they did speak to the people. And this is why I keep on saying the entire time where Democrats could actually do some damage. Number one, above all else, all you have to do, and I mean this, all you have to do, speak to your people when it's not an election year. Speak to your people when you're not going for the vote. Speak to your people and really get the ear of them. Because you know how Trump did it? What F-47 did? All F-47 did was, for lack of better words, speak to the idiots. He did. He this is the reason. Oh, I won't do a presidential debate because I don't want to show my stupidity. I'm gonna go to a rally where people will vote for me and I'll seem like the smartest person there. I will be adorned with praise and money and all of these things. But I will continue to do that. That's how F-47 got it. He spoke to people who were disenfranchised. He spoke to people that unfortunately were not of the properly educated. He spoke to those people and pretty much did what he did last year, or I should say last 2 years, he did back in 2016. He tapped into the anger of people. And of course, people believe because they think that F-47 is a successful businessman, that he'll be able to get things done. Here's the problem. Successful businessmen rarely make great politicians and presidents. I should know. The state of Tennessee has one as a governor, and he's an idiot. So, again, Democrats, this is the best time right now. Yes, it is going to be a long couple of years. It is going to be long, especially with what we're going to go over a little bit later because today is Liberation Day, according to Trump, or as I like to call it, a day of bullshit. But Democrats, you can lay the groundwork to where it should almost be a slam dunk for you to get overwhelming majorities in the House and the Senate and to get a Democratic administration. Because historically, and I say this all the time because I've yet to have one conservative sit there and point this out to me, you cannot name a Republican administrative term that was successful for the U.S. Historically, every Republican administration has led to economic ruin and possibly in war. Every Democratic administration has to clean up the mess of the Republican administration and actually may take the entire 2 terms of the president to do so. So again, Democrats, the ball's in your court right now. Nothing looks good as far as Trump goes. And at the same time, they're just now doing massive layovers. And I do mean massive because even Jon Stewart on The Daily Show pointed this out.
He continues apace. And a couple of months into Trump's second of his, let's say, 4 to 7 terms, he continues to live up to his vaunted apprentice catchphrase, "You're fired."
More than 1,300 workers now fired at the Department of Education.
The IRS beginning to lay off more than 6,000 employees.
The Social Security Administration will cut 7,000 jobs.
The U.S. Postal Service will trim its workforce by 10,000.
HHS will be dropping around 20,000 workers.
The Department of Veterans Affairs looking to cut 80,000 jobs.
Yeah. And that's not even half the government. And unfortunately, because of Elon Musk and others out there and his Doge, or I should say Russian for dumbass, are the ones that are including these cuts. And again, Democrats, you guys have it made right now. You know why? His Secretary of Defense is a drunk and is spilling state secrets, although he's not supposed to. You have a whole bunch of government workers being let go for no reason. I mean, the ball's in your court, Democrats. The ball is in your court, especially when we know off the bat, this I will say this has to be the greatest insult because the White House Correspondents' Dinner, this lets you know off the bat that things are changing around because F-47's around. Because Amber Ruffin was supposed to be the comedian for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Association dinner. Now they're saying that, nah, we're good. We don't need any comedic performances at all. And I think that's crazy because they unanimously, sorry, words are hard, unanimously voted to remove her as the comedic performance and sit there and say, you know what? We don't need one. Now, I can only imagine why they don't want a comedian to talk about the White House this time around. Maybe there's just more. I mean, given the fact that it's F-47's administration and there's like a gold mine of ammo for any comedian that would love to. Personally, I just wish George Carlin was around because him and Patrice O'Neill and a few others would have a field day with the current political climate. But if it goes to show you that Trump's administration can't even take a joke to where they've removed the comedian, which is usually an annual tradition, because let me get this straight. Bush 2.0 could take a joke. President Obama could take a joke. Biden could take a joke. You're telling me that a person that's supposedly thick-skinned and in great shape and looks like he's really 1 tan away from getting skin cancer, F-47 can't take a joke, but yet calls everybody snowflakes. Figure that one out. But let's go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes of Liberation Day. But before we get to that, there was the fear of what he was going to talk about on Liberation Day. Yep, it was going to be new tariffs. But let's start with what happened yesterday first.
This morning, just 1 day away from a major escalation in the president's ongoing trade wars.
What they do to us, we do to them.
President Trump expected to unveil a package of, quote, reciprocal tariffs on allies and adversaries alike worldwide, but keeping the specifics under wraps with a Rose Garden rollout planned for Wednesday. The uncertainty leaving businesses and buyers of everything from pharmaceuticals to food to computer chips guessing at what the president has suggested will be a massive reordering of American trade. One of the few tariffs detailed by the White House is the 25% levy on imported vehicles beginning Thursday and on auto parts by May 3rd.
There are no tariffs if you do your product here.
But in Metro Detroit, home of the American auto industry, the picture is cloudier.
We're jumping off the cliff right now.
And you can't see the bottom.
No.
Jim Seavitt has owned Village Ford in Dearborn since 1982.
Even the vehicles that are made here have foreign-made parts in them. Is there any such thing as a fully American vehicle anymore?
Not that I know of.
Not on this lot.
No.
Goldman Sachs estimates the tariffs could add $5,000 to $15,000 to the price tag of Ford-made cars, and $3,000 to $8,000 on cars made in the U.S. because of the tax on parts. On Saturday, President Trump telling NBC News he, quote, couldn't care less if foreign car makers raise their prices to pass on the tariff costs, hoping it will encourage consumers to buy American. Auto worker James Benson says it's all worth it.
We've pretty much gave it away to every country but ourselves. So, yeah, I'm very optimistic.
In Washington, Democrats arguing the tariffs will be destructive.
Donald Trump's trade war is playing Russian roulette with the American economy.
As they try to slow the frantic pace of Trump's new term, some in the party introducing a bill to block some tariffs. And New Jersey Democrat Cory Booker staging a marathon.
And I'll leave it there because it pretty much goes in information we already know about. But yes, that was yesterday. And now we've come to the day that, Trump had to have all these people for, where the beguiled auto worker believed that, this was great. Let's get to Liberation Day. And the day that we all feared, because we knew off the bat, Trump was a tariff man, although he doesn't understand how tariffs work, but swear up and down tariffs actually do help with production in the U.S., which they haven't, but still believes that he can. He decided to lay down the gauntlet. And as you can tell, he had to have people there. He had to feel adorned. At the same time, I think the man just really needs a hug. But technically, he actually needs a lot more than that. But anyway, let's get to Liberation Day, shall we?
Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. Going to make it wealthy, good and wealthy. For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. American steelworkers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen, we have a lot of them here with us today. They really suffered gravely. They watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. We had an American dream that you don't hear so much about. You did 4 years ago, and you are now, but you don't too often, and for many years and decades even, you didn't hear too much about. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For years, hardworking American citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense. But now it's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly. With today's action, we are finally going to be able to make America great again, greater than ever before. Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country, and you see it happening already. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. And ultimately, more production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers. This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back. We're going to come back very strongly. We're pleased to be joined on this momentous occasion by Vice President J.D. Vance. J.D., thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Where are you, J.D.? No, that wasn't too hard to find. I was looking, you know, he likes to take a low-key attitude, so usually we sit right in front. He's gaining a lot of confidence, Mike, isn't it? And nearly my entire cabinet is here, as well as Speaker Mike Johnson, has done an amazing job. And with the great success we had last night in Florida, we have a majority of 7. And 7's like a lot when we had it at 1, right? You've done a fantastic job. And many of the members of the House and Senate are with us. Senators, congressmen, thank you all for being with us. We appreciate it. For decades, the United States slashed our trade barriers on other countries, while those nations placed massive tariffs on our products and created outrageous non-monetary barriers to decimate our industries. And in many cases, the non-monetary barriers were worse than the monetary ones. They manipulated their currencies, subsidized their exports, stole our intellectual property, imposed exorbitant VAT taxes to disadvantage our products, adopted unfair rules and technical standards, and created filthy pollution havens. They were absolutely filthy, but they always came to us and they said, we're violating, we should pay for it. It's all detailed in a very big report by the U.S. Trade Representative on foreign trade barriers, and I'll just hold it up for you. It's available, and you don't have to pay too much. As I understand it, you'll pay nothing. It's a lot of work for something, actually, because it's a special book. It's very, frankly, it's very upsetting when you read it, when you see what people have been doing to us for 30 years. This all happened with no response from the United States of America, none whatsoever. But those days are over. Let me offer just a few examples of the vicious attacks our workers have faced for so many years. The United States charges other countries only a 2.4 tariff on motorcycles. Meanwhile, Thailand and others are charging much higher prices, like 60%. India charges 70%. Vietnam charges 75%, and others are even higher than that. Likewise, until today, the United States has for decades charged a 2.5 tariff. Think of that, 2.5% on foreign-made automobiles. The European Union charges us more than 10% tariffs, and they have 20% VATs, much, much higher. India charges 70%, and perhaps worst of all are the non-monetary restrictions imposed by South Korea, Japan, and very many other nations. As a result of these colossal trade barriers, 81% of the cars in South Korea are made in South Korea. 94% of the cars in Japan are made in Japan. Toyota sells 1 million foreign-made automobiles into the United States, and General Motors sells almost none. Ford sells very little. None of our companies are allowed to go into other countries. And I say that friend and foe. And in many cases, the friend is worse than the foe in terms of trade. But such horrendous imbalances have devastated our industrial base and put our national security at risk. I don't blame these other countries at all for this calamity. I blame former presidents and past leaders who weren't doing their job. They let it happen, and they let it happen to an extent that nobody can even believe. That's why, effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
Okay, so I know it was a lot. It was a lot. Thank you for hanging in there for 7 minutes, because whenever F47 speaks, it's like an old guy watched Fox News and then they put him in front of a crowd with a mic and said, go. So I love the fact that he's saying that they're going to be doing sweeping tariffs. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just bring this up because, again, if you haven't seen this, you really should. Mainly because, one, I want to point out something here. So I'm going to try to blow this up as best as I can. With that being said, so this is the reciprocal tariffs, right? He's got on there, and I'm just going to go just very quickly as fast as I can on the countries that he's basically said that we're going to do tariffs on: China, European Union, Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, India, South Korea, Thailand, Switzerland, Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, United Kingdom, South Africa, Brazil, Bangladesh, Singapore, Israel, Philippines, Chile, Australia, Pakistan, Turkey, Sri Lanka, and Colombia. To which all of those tariffs can range anywhere from as low as 10% all the way up to 49%. 49% being hit with Cambodia. And of course, I love how they say, well, these are the tariffs in the blue, right? Are the ones he's sitting there saying, well, these are the ones that are being charged. These are the ones that are being charged to the USA. On the right, it shows that he's basically saying, well, these are the tariffs that are basically being charged, that we're charging. Now, the one thing I do want to point out, like with the quickness, you don't see, and I'm just going to be honest about this, do you see Russia anywhere on that list? Because I don't. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't see Russia anywhere on that list. I don't at all. Because it's amazing. They're going, because again, Putin and F-47 are butt buddies. Let's just be honest about that. But it is amazing to me that he talks about the auto industry and that none of the auto industries don't have factories here, which is actually very not true. Ford, GM, Toyota, Dodge, or I should say in this case, Stellantis, they have several factories in the U.S. We've covered them because of the fact that the auto worker strikes that happened last year. We covered them. Those are factories here in the U.S. It happened with Ford. It happened with GM and Stellantis. It happened with the big three. So to sit there and say that no cars are being produced in the U.S. is a load of bullshit. Now, of course, a lot of the other companies, because again, he didn't say that these automakers didn't close up factories here in the U.S. and move them overseas. However, like Ford moved one of their production lines from Michigan to Mexico. He didn't sit there and say how Stellantis moved one of their production companies to, I believe it was to, I want to say also Mexico, but it also could be somewhere else. But either way, it was out of the country. See, what the president fails to mention is that all these reciprocal tariffs that he's trying to use and imply and trying to sit there and say, well, the auto workers got screwed. No, it's the fact that you also didn't mention that these companies, these big three and those everywhere else, moved their factories because they didn't want to pay workers. And you know who also didn't say anything? Conservatives. Because you notice that during his little 7-minute speech, he didn't say spit about Biden. He just said previous leaders. Because you know why? In F-47's mind, Biden is still there, no matter what. Even though he's 79 years old, he made fun of Biden's age, saying he's too old to be president. Well, F-47, so are you. And we can tell by your lack of logic and lying. But doing reciprocal tariffs on companies that already have tariffs on us, because we put tariffs on them first. So it's this roundabout. And he still sits there and says, well, if we put tariffs on them, it's going to encourage production back in the U.S. Also bullshit. Tariffs have never, in its history inclusion, has actually produced or pushed for goods to be produced back in the same state that is pushing the tariff. Do you want to know why? Because America is no longer an exporter. At one point, yes, America was an exporter of materials and goods. Throughout the decades, we have switched from an exporter to an importer. We get most of our fruits from Mexico. We get most of our oil that comes from overseas to seas comes through Canada. We get different things from different nations now, and yet you want to put tariffs on them, and at the same time, Canada, which last week just sat there and said we cut all ties with the U.S. And I don't think, especially if you're the northern states, you can't be without Canadians because they do supply power to northern U.S. states. At the same time, now the Canadian dollar has risen. And because of these reciprocal tariffs, well, let's be honest, the stock market really didn't take it that well. And by well, I mean it flatlined. If we're being honest, the after the news that Trump did about the reciprocal tariffs, the Dow had slid about 1,000 points. S&P plunged 3%. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. When the stock market takes a hit like that, after the news that the president unfortunately just said, it does not bode well. Also, again, if you're a gamer, look at electronics, because if you think car parts are affected, everything's affected now. From what you eat, to what you wear, to what you use electronically, all the above, prices will skyrocket. Why? Because those tariffs go into effect 2 hours from now. It's 10/17 at the time of this podcast. So we're not too far off from those reciprocal tariffs going into effect. At the same time, global markets are reacting to this. And trust me, Trump thinks this is a great move. No, F-47, it is not. Matter of fact, you are going to hate what happens next, because you basically just fast-tracked us to recession. That's what you did. You have fast-tracked us to another recession. The U.S. dollar has taken a hit. Global currencies have risen. And do not think for a second these other sovereign nations are looking at us and going, you know, we can charge the U.S. for all they're worth because they depend on us now. And at the same time, to point out to F-47, where is this mysterious production, this spring well of production that you expect to happen in the U.S. to where we don't depend on foreign support anymore? Because the clothing industry has depended on foreign support. The electronics industry, has depended on foreign support for rare earth minerals, for semiconductor chips. All of that stuff comes from overseas. So it is amazing to me that Trump is going to sit there and say, oh, we're just going to put reciprocal tariffs on it like it solves everything. No, it does not. But we'll get into that a little bit later, as far as, Trump believing that, American cars should be actually done here, because, again, there's no such thing as a fully completed, assembled American car without parts coming from overseas. Yes, it is a true thing. But here's another thing that we want to bring up, guys, because again, whenever it does come up with Trump, and whenever Trump doesn't like something or when a ruling doesn't go his way, I have sat there and told you guys he loves to basically say we're going to take it to the Supreme Court. He loves taking it to the Supreme Court like it's a straight shot. And I've said this before. How in the blue hell? Because the Supreme Court used to be the court that very rarely gets involved. It used to be with the court was like, look, it only comes to us if it's ran through the lower courts. It used to be that way because whenever the Supreme Court made a ruling, it did change the course of history and society as we know it. And now Trump sees it as anything more than a fast food lineup. Don't believe me? His executive orders are getting blocked by lower judges. Guess what court he wants to take it to?
Well, on multiple challenges to President Trump's new executive actions as early as this week. The White House filed emergency petitions on 4 of the president's policies, resuming deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act, ending birthright citizenship, ending education department grants, and the legality of firing of thousands of federal employees are all on the table. Let's bring in ABC's Devin Dwyer to break it down for us. Devin, a federal judge also just blocked a policy allowing the deportation of migrants to countries other than their own without giving them notice and a chance to argue against their removal. So how do you expect that to factor into the ACLU's argument against these deportation flights?
Yeah, there are 2 separate cases that are playing out this week, Diane, and there is so much going on this issue of deportations right now. But federal courts are really taking a close look at how the administration is sending people to El Salvador. We've all seen the pictures of those alleged gang members. Donald Trump has talked loudly about getting them out of the country, but the real legal questions are, how is this happening? Is the administration following the law? The most talked about case, of course, the one that's going to be back on Thursday, was those 2 plane loads of people about a week or so ago where the president sent them down there with, under the Alien Enemies Act with very little to no due process, sweeping up people alleged of a crime, sending them out of the country. Yesterday, we took a closer look at this other case where the administration is now prevented from sending people to El Salvador if they're not Salvadoran. Without any notice or any due process, a judge said that they have to get that. And already just yesterday, the administration sent 7 Venezuelans to El Salvador. And so we're trying to find out today, Diane, whether the administration may have violated that judge's order. So separate cases, they speak to each other, but just underscores how unusual this arrangement is for the government to be sending people to another country to be held in prison.
And that's the crazy part. And now that Supreme Court, and I said this, and guys, I've sat there and said this before. The Supreme Court is now conservative leaning. What I mean by that is we used to not worry about whether or not Supreme Court would actually rule properly because there was a balance. Now there's an off balance. There are more conservatives than progressives on the Supreme Court. I know we could argue that, yes, Biden did get one Supreme Court pick in, the Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. We could argue that he got one, and then he got several other African-American women in as judge appointees and got them sworn in. Bravo. Should it have been balanced again? I think so. I think that you can have conservatives at the same time you can have progressives on there and make it a balanced Supreme Court. There needs to be checks and balances everywhere. At the same time, I do not think that F-47 and his administration have the ability to just skip the line and go straight to the end because it's a favorable court. That's what I'm getting at. It's almost the same thing as if Trump and his obsession with Greenland. Because, again, the president wants to have Greenland and it never ceased to amaze me. Because, J.D. Vance and his wife went to Greenland and they had a little problem. Nobody wanted to sit with them. At the same time, the Denmark government has sat there and said, Greenland's not for sale. And because F-47 is a failed businessman who doesn't take no for an answer, and we can tell because he's also a convicted sexual predator, will not let it go. And again, wasted time. But what I want to get to, guys, because a lot of people believe, and I just want to stress this very heavily, American cars are not American cars. Yes, you have the titles of Ford, GM, Stellantis has Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge. Yes, but the reason why these tariffs are going to hit hard is because the parts in them come from overseas. The engines may be assembled here, but the rare earth minerals that create the ECU, the powertrain, transmission, electrical wiring, things of that nature, comes from overseas. I mean, they do come from Malaysia. They do come from Indonesia. They do come from China. They do come from Japan. All of those components go into every American car. And I just want to stress this so very heavily. There is not an American-made car that does not have overseas components. And why do we worry about that? We worry about that because, again, with the tariffs, those prices are going to come in and jack the car up higher. You think you hate a truck, a 4x4 pickup truck that costs like $60,000, $70,000? Oh, it's going to go up. It's going to go up exponentially because of the tariffs on those components. And it'll almost make them unattainable, which they already are unattainable. At the same time, motorcycles. I'll even use the Nintendo Switch. Just because me as a gamer, Nintendo had their direct channel today and talked about the Switch, and that the Switch is about $400 and some odd dollars and change. The Switch is made overseas. It's not made in the US. So guess what? That $400 price tag is going to go up because of tariffs. I keep bringing this up, guys, because again, whenever it comes to tariffs, and I mean that wholeheartedly, you have to understand that everything goes up. It does nothing but hurt the consumer. Because if you expect the seller to eat that cost, they're not. Sellers have margins. Sellers have goals to meet. Otherwise, they don't make very good businessmen. So the costs get passed on to the buyer. And I don't think you guys have noticed because of well, for a lot of us that have noticed, because we do know the huge gap of wage inequality among us all makes it hard to do things. So yes, there are going to be some decisions. Maybe we don't need another car. Maybe we go to cash cars. Maybe we buy thrift stores. And at the same time, wouldn't be surprised if there's sales being done that are being done on the side. Hey, what y'all do is y'all do. I don't care. But at the same time, across the board, there's going to be a lot of things taking hits that they really should be honest about. And if you think for 1 second that the big three are going to come back and say, you know what, guys, because these tariffs, maybe we actually should pull all of our factories from overseas and bring them here. Said no auto executive ever. At the same time, if you think that farmers, especially here, because some farmers think that they're going to get help, think this is a great idea. It's not, because again, the last time we had tariffs, farmers needed a bailout, actually twice, to which F-47 gave it to them, except the black farmers. So now, what do you think is going to happen this time? Farmers are going to need a bailout. Wall Street's going to need a bailout. The big three auto workers, the big three auto companies, they're going to need bailouts. And where do you think that money is going to come from? Because in Donald Trump's mind, it's imaginary land. And again, the taxpayer is going to have to bail everybody out. And here's my thing. If we're bailing everybody out, from farmers to auto car companies and banks and things of that nature, we deserve some free shit. Just saying. We deserve some free shit. But speaking of things that should be free, and I never thought I'd actually talk about this on this podcast, churches. Let's talk about it. Because Marvin Sapp, if you haven't already been under a rock or you haven't been on any social media, because he's been the butt of many jokes for the fact of his church offering and what was said. Now, usually I agree with Roland Martin. I, think he's very intelligent, very outspoken, and an activist that I love to follow because of the fact he is for black journalism, and I'm all for that. But Roland might be a little wrong on this.
Left and right. So here is what he actually said.
I was taught a long time ago that it costs to sit up here. Y'all don't like me. Y'all don't like me. Man, I'm telling y'all, it costs. Went upstairs today to get my license and ordination renewed. I'm not telling you, I was 2 years behind. I had to pay $2,000 to get my ordination and my licensing renewed. I pulled out my credit card. I paid him $2,000. How in the world am I going to preach up here and not lead by example? He asked me to give $800. Went in my pocket, gave $800. Because leadership lead and they understand the cost that is involved. There's 1,000 of you, I said close them doors. Ushers, close the doors. Close the doors. Close the doors. We all lead together. Y'all ain't going no place but to the restaurant. There's 1,000 of you tonight, and those that are watching, it's 1,000 that's watching online. This is a small seed. If I get 1,000 online to give this, if I get 1,000 in the sanctuary to give this, that's $40,000 tonight. I'm challenging each of you all down here to give a $20 seed. I just think $20 is a lot of money. $20, believe it or not, when my late wife Melinda P. Sapp was alive, was a good date. I could take her to the movies, buy a box of popcorn, get 1 soda, 2 straws. I wasn't cheap, that's swag. I was looking in her eyes, she's looking in mine. Can't do that no more. Everyone up here, we've all sold and seeded, but I need everyone standing up here with us, with me, to plant a seed $100. Because again, it costs to sit up here. I got you. See? So put your 20 away, preachers. That 20 wasn't for you. And this is what I need you to do. If you're giving electronically or if you're giving tangibly, I'm going to have you come to the altar and give it, because I need to see 1,000 people moving. Bring them baskets. I want the baskets up here. I want to see the folk. Y'all start moving. Y'all can bring it right now. Come. Even if you're giving tangibly, just put your hand on take your phone and stick it on the bucket. Giving is worship. Giving is Giving is worship. This ain't the time to talk. 1,000 people need to give $20. 1,000 people need to give $20. 1,000 people online need to give $20. This is easy, saints. This is an easy miracle. We should be able to raise $40,000 tonight just from our giving.
So the blogs took off. Whether you're Hollywood Unlocked, Jasmine Brand, Shade Room, Ball Alert, they all posted this video. Other people were posting left and right on social media. As a result, Pastor Marvin Sapp had to come out and make a statement. And then he appeared this morning on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show.
And my membership dwindled after my wife had passed because I had to travel more in order to take care of me and my kids. Right. So, my membership, it dwindled, but we never lost anything. And as a matter of fact, this is factual. The day I announced the new pastor, I burned the mortgage of the church. I left Rapids, I left my church not only debt free, but I left them 6 figures in the bank and put a brand new pastor in and walked away and moved to Texas. I'm not walking around here trying to be a pimp. I'm not trying to take advantage of people. That's never been my passion. I'm serious about ministry. And let me go a step further. There's a whole lot of other pastors around here that are doing the same thing. Most pastors in America are bivocational, meaning they have jobs outside of their churches. The average church size in America is only 75 people. Look it up. It's factual. So we not getting rich off the church. I am bivocational. I'm a W-2 employee at my church. I have a syndicated radio show that I do every week to over 60 different markets. I own real estate. I have mutual funds. I have annuities. I have stocks. I play the market. I took my money and I didn't trick it. Money that you made, money that I made from music, from hit records. I'm one of the only gospel artists with billions of streams. And you tour. And I tour. I just came off of a tour. Sure.
So here's Marvin Sapp walking through all of this. And a bunch of people out there commenting, talking about how he said lock the doors. Well, if you actually listen to the clip, he never said lock the doors. He said close the doors. He also spoke on that.
That's the narrative that has been shared, that I lock folks up in my church, that, I made them give $40,000 and I wouldn't allow them to leave until they gave it to me. And to be honest with you, that is absolutely false. Yeah. Number one, that offering was taken last year. This was a service that happened last August. Number two, it didn't happen at my local church. It actually happened at a national organization's international meeting where churches from all over the country, all over the world came together for the purpose of celebrating the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. People took issue with me saying, shut the doors. Understand, I never said lock the doors. Yeah. I said, shut the doors. Shutting doors mean that people still have the ability to go in and out. They've taken issue with my tone. And I can honestly say, looking at the video, maybe I was a little more assertive than I should have been. And I can apologize for that. But three things I need to make sure that people understood. Number one, the $40,000, if it was $40,000 that was raised, was never given to me. That money was raised for the purpose of taking care of the budget for their conference, not Marvin Sapp. Number two, it didn't happen at my church. It happened in Baltimore. Number three, people take issue with me being firm with the ushers. Anybody that goes to church, ushers one-on-one, that's the first thing they teach you as being an usher, is that there are 3 times you don't walk. You don't walk during the altar call. You don't walk during prayer. You don't walk during the offering. One of the reasons being is because of the sacredness of the moment. But it's also about security. As a pastor, we understand and we know that churches are being robbed at gunpoint. It's happening all over the country. This is not something I'm making up. This is factual. So if you got 5,000 people in the room, you want the doors closed. You don't want the doors locked. I couldn't get them locked anyway. It's a convention center, but the doors needed to be closed. And there was a lot of pandemonium and stuff that was going on out there, but I wanted to share that first, but that ain't even the reason why I'm here. Here's the reason why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is because what has happened is people have taken clickbait and made something out of it that it isn't. And because of that, my church has been getting phone calls. People have called my church and cussed me out. My staff are afraid because I've received death threats over $20 and shut the door. People have come to our campus. They have come to my church to try to cause problems, issues, challenges. And again, my children, I don't look at comments. We was talking about this. I don't read comments. When you got millions of followers, you ain't got time to be reading all the comments. You just don't have it. Right. My children do. And they are afraid. And the reason being is because I'm their only parent. I'm a widower. They're afraid for my safety. So now we've had to update and increase security and all the things I've never had to do before because of the vitriol and the anger that people have shown, the things that they've said in my thread and stuff. And all of this is because of a misunderstanding. And I'm not blaming people. Let me be clear. I'm not blaming anybody because of their misunderstanding. I'm just saying in all you're getting, get an understanding. And if I'm sharing with you that the $40,000 that I was trying to raise, and again, I don't know if the organization got 40, 10, 20, any of it. I don't know. I'm hoping that I actually raised more money so that I can help the organization that has been such a great support to me. These people,
and again, let's be clear, not a dime of that money.
Not a dime of that money came to me. Not a dime of it.
And where did your money come from?
I've been blessed. I've been extremely blessed. I've sold millions of records. Millions. I'm a songwriter.
That was Marvin Sapp. Y'all tripping over $20. This ain't no Johnny Taylor, My Last $2 song. Y'all are tripping over $20 at a religious conference where, last I checked, folk are accustomed to giving. Now, what Marvin Sapp was doing was basic math. Marvin Sapp was saying if there are 1,000 people in the room and there are 1,000 people watching, if each person sows a seed of $20, that raises $40,000 for the conference, for the convention, for the organization. On March 4th, when we had our show, and when Tiffany Lofton talked about their student association, and she said that they didn't have the money for some 30 students from Florida A&M to attend the conference, I stopped her and said, how much do y'all need? Tiffany said, I said, calculate how much and get back to me. Later, she then said, we need $39,000. I pledged $20,000. I then put it out to the more than 101,000 people who were still with us after midnight. 2:30 that morning, Tiffany called me and said they had raised $85,000. That allowed not just for the Florida A&M students to attend, it allowed for other students to attend. I actually just hit her and said, what was the total amount? Because we later went online and said we want to raise an additional $17,000. The total amount raised for that student conference was $108,000. Now, mind you, last year they had this conference and 5 students from 3 schools were in attendance. Then they asked Tiffany if she could help them organize this year, and there were almost 130 students at this year's conference. Nobody is forced to give anything. Nobody is forced to give $20. When I make the call for this show, what do I say? I ask folk to give on average $50 each. There are many people who cannot give $50. So some people have given $25, $30. I had a check for $19.05 the other day. 10, I had a series of $5 check. Folk have given $1 via Cash App. Other people have given more. I've had some people give $100, $150, $250, $300, $500, $1,000. Last month, we had a woman from New Hampshire who sent 10 $1,000 cashier's checks. I don't send folks hats and T-shirts and swag. They are investing or sowing into this show like some folks sow into a ministry. But see, here's what I find interesting. I was talking to a sister, and she had a friend of hers who was complaining about tithing at the church. Now, this same sister rolls up to the church every Sunday, drops her child off in the church's daycare while she goes into the sanctuary. Now, that sister don't think for a second with the folk in the daycare actually get paid. That sister gives no thought at the church actually must get insurance for the daycare. Now, she goes into the sanctuary and she sits down in her seat. At no time does a sister ever think about the air conditioning in the church. At no time, if it's cold, does she ever think about the heat in the church. She doesn't think about, when she drove up to the church, the security in the church. She doesn't think about the parking lot attendance. In fact, she ain't even thought about how was that ground paved to actually create the parking lot in the church. So now she goes in, and guess what? If her child needs to have its diaper changed, the daycare got it. That sister don't think about how do they pay for those diapers. Then when service is over, she then goes to the counter to get her a cup of coffee. She don't pay for the coffee. At no time does she think, I wonder how they paid for these cups. I wonder how they paid for the coffee to provide it for free to the folk who are walking up. And so what does she do? She comes to church. She gets her a free concert with the choir singing. Oh, I'm sorry. Did it ever occur to her that that organ has to be paid for? Does she think about that those robes must be paid for? Does she think about the church must pay a licensing fee for the popular music that they actually sing? Does she somehow contemplate, my goodness, those drums and those saxophones and those horns, they all cost money. Oh, I'm sorry. When your mama gets sick, when your daddy gets sick, you call the church. Can you come to the hospital and pray with my mama? Pray with my daddy. Somebody is getting paid to actually do that. We can go round and round, whether we want to admit it or not. Church is indeed a business. There are costs associated with it. But I love these folk who sit here and say, Pastor, can you please pray for me? First Lady, can you pay for me? A hospital and pray with my mama. Pray with my daddy. Somebody is getting paid to actually do that. We can go round and round, whether we want to admit it or not. Church is indeed a business.
I just want to stop it right there. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. That was a long video, and I apologize, but I wanted to get the context. And let's start with Roland. Mr. Martin, Mr. Martin, I have immense respect for you. And I waited until that one part that you were going to say what I knew you were going to say. Church is a business. Okay. I'm glad that you said it. So we have no problem taxing them, right? We have no problem taxing churches. At the same time, Marvin Sapp, I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for you. Because number one, the prosperity gospel is bullshit. It is. If there's not a way to fleece a flock, then that. Sow your blessings so that you might reap them later. That's exactly what it is. Hey, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. So with Marvin Sapp and what he did, everybody's like, well, he said lock doors. Okay, he said close the doors. But he was at a conference. They expected them to give at a conference. Again, the church is a business. Here's the thing I always love when they say they finally admit it. Because churches are 501c businesses, charitable groups, which means that they are not deemed taxable. They actually get a tax exempt status for anything that they purchase. This is why a lot of these pastors that you see, a lot of these pastors that have these ministries and whatnot, they don't own anything. The church owns it. The church owns. Excuse me, guys, because my cam decided to go out. Apologies. So the church owns the homes. It owns the cars. It owns the grounds. It owns all of these things too. Here's the thing, because a lot of people get the prosperity gospel, and I say this because number one, elders kid in the Church of Christ. I've heard just about all of it, but here's the thing that I've always pointed out. And again, not to turn this into a religious discussion, but I am. The Bible says to be a cheerful giver. The Bible says to give as you can. Because for all those that don't remember, there's a parable in the Bible where Jesus was actually there, where people were giving everything they had. And then there was one woman that could give no more than two coins. And what did Jesus say? That this woman gave just as much, if not more, than anybody else there, because she gave with a heart. She gave with her heart. When you tithe, you give with a cheerful heart. So what am I getting at here? The thing I'm getting at here, guys, is that Marvin Sapp did exactly what we've always known most churches to do. they have sat there, and I said most churches. Now, keep in mind, I said most. There are a lot of churches out there that are actually doing good work for the community, that are actually trying to better, to try to help their neighbors, things of that nature. I'm not talking about those churches. I'm talking about those freaking multi-franchise, large, big-ass churches. That's what I'm talking about. I am talking about your Joel Osteens. I am talking about your TD Jakes. I am talking about your Creflo Dollars. I am talking about Marvin Sapp. Because all of their ministries, you can literally hear the grifting as they talk. Oh, when I left my church was 6 figures in the black, and I installed a new pastor, and then I left. Well, then how'd you make your money? I was blessed. You're a Christian artist that made money. Never would have paid it. I wouldn't have, because it is amazing to me. It is amazing to me that you have churches that are businesses that are not taxed. That's why I've always said it best. A church is a business because the people that give remain poor, whereas the people working for the church seem to have a step up. Now, if that is your bag, that is your bag. But be honest about it. And Marvin Sapp knew he was wrong about it. He had to do an apology tour. And I'm mad at Roland Martin. I'm mad at Ricky Smiley, because what they actually did was give this man a platform to do an effing apology tour, because even he thought about it and said, maybe I shouldn't have said it like that. Because again, and I say this, guys, not to go off topic, but there's a reason why black congregations are losing members, or members are dying out, or that younger generations don't want to go to church anymore. It's not the fact that they get nothing out of it. It's not the fact that the black church might be the most discriminatory group out there. It's the fact that when you see stuff like this, and you see Marvin Sapp coming on and saying, "Oh, we can get $40,000 out of this group," and what happened? You saw the people behind him. You saw an old man start whipping out money. And again, if you're donating with a cheerful heart, cool. But what I saw right there was a guy that was fleecing a flock. And then you have Roland Martin talking about, well, that sister didn't think about the fact this church had daycare. This church has free coffee. Somebody's got to pay for that. That goes back to tithing. It goes back to it. If you give cheerfully. This is why I say, in my opinion, the prosperity gospel is bullshit. Because if the rain falls on the just and unjust, what does it matter? What does it matter whether or not you have an umbrella or raincoat? You're still going to get wet, right? So at the same time, if I'm giving in order to be blessed later, that lets me think that, oh, well, as long as I sow this seed, then I should be blessed later. How so? See, this is the part I'm getting at, guys. And I don't really want to go down that path, but what Sapp actually did, as far as that, it just puts a bad taste in people's mouths. And yes, you might actually push a lot more people away from the church. I'm just saying. Oh, hey, honey, give us you've been blessed, not forced hostage situation. Pretty much. Do you believe in Christ? The Bible says you have to give a percentage of wages. Oh, my friend, one day I will do a live and we can really discuss that, because again, kind of a little bit of a misconception. This is how Shiite Muslims feel about Shiite Islam. Fair. He should have apologized because he's wrong. His platform holds congregation actually gave $20. Yes, he did. And again, it should be called out. But also, I am mad that, again, two people I still highly respect, Roland Martin and Ricky Smiley. Come on, guys. Hold this man's feet to the fire. If you apologize, then apologize. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do in religion anyway, right? You're supposed to apologize and ask for forgiveness. I didn't hear Sapp apologizing. But then again, if someone sat there and told me close the doors and we go get some money out of these people, I'll be the first one singing Never Would Have Paid It. Although I'm still waiting on my remix to that. But I digress. Moving right along, guys. A couple more news articles before we call it night. Trump believes that he can run a third term and says there's a way you can do it. I wish I could make this up.
Fallout after President Trump did not rule out the possibility of a third term, even though it's prohibited by the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution.
People are asking me to run, and there's a whole story about running for a third term. I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that. But I want to do a fantastic job.
In an exclusive phone interview, NBC's Kristen Welker asked the president about a possible scenario where Vice President Vance is elected with President Trump as his running mate, and then Vance steps aside. The president saying that's one method, but there are others too, saying he would not talk about them. Still, that could require amending the Constitution to allow Trump to run for re-election.
But there's no proposal to change the Constitution right now.
Republicans telling reporters the president was not being serious.
I think he's probably having some fun with it, probably messing with it.
President Trump has repeatedly joked about a third term.
I think I'm not allowed to run again. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to run again?
But on Sunday, the president told NBC News, "I'm not joking." Meanwhile, as Tesla becomes a target of new
Oh, yes, because Tesla's being targeted, and unfortunately, Pam Bondi believes that is the real terrorism at the moment. But this is insanity. Yes, it is. Because Trump really does believe that. Again, if Trump ever picked up a constitution or a book about the Constitution, there's this little thing called 22nd Amendment where running as president only guarantees you two consecutive terms. Two terms, and that's all you get. And I know what, and again, this is F47's thinking. Let me go ahead and say this is in the event that he ever looks up and finds this podcast, Mr. F47, because I refuse to call you president. You can only run 2 terms. This 4-year run that you're on, that's the last ride, buddy. Because number one, in order for you to get a third term, you would have to amend the 22nd Amendment. That takes a majority of congressional approval, which means that you would have to have Democrats as well as Republicans to agree to this, to amend it. And to quote Hamilton, you don't have the votes. At the same time, even if your presidential run is over and you decide to put your hand puppet JD Vance up to run for president, and then you try to run as his VP, and then he, let's just say in the off-ball snowball's chance in hell that he actually does get the presidency, he can't concede the presidency to you in line of succession. Why? The 22nd Amendment. Also, Mr. F47, you can't run for Attorney General or the House or the Senate and get elected and think that those above you could concede in order to have that line of succession come to you as president. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. And again, you serve 2 terms. At the same time, Mr. F47, you as president cannot declare martial law and suspend the election process. Again, you don't have that ability. So we have just ran down 3 if you count the 22nd Amendment, but still 4 scenarios. All of them are completely not happening. He can sit there and it's like, well, he's having a little bit of fun with you. No, because he really thinks it can happen. And again, unless Democrats jump on this boat, which I doubt, but at the same time, guys, I keep saying, along with Chuck Schumer, who again will probably not be minority, senator leader come the midterms, because he just showed you exactly what he's about. Trump's not going to be president. There's not a third term coming. Now, will he do everything he can within this current term to give us all hell? Yes. And as Mr. Furto said, this is insanity. But again, it is going to be the longest 4 years on record that we have to deal with this. And Democrats should be doing everything they can to prove that they can have a majority in the House and the Senate and the presidency. But Trump getting a third term, not happening. But here's the one thing I am going to point out about Trump and exactly what he has said. That, again, he thinks, and this is another thing that I keep pointing, and this thing I keep pointing out, guys, when it comes to Elon Musk. what that right there is illegal. Elon Musk operating in a government position that he was not elected for is illegal. But Pam Bondi, being the attorney general and Trump's pretty much ass kisser, won't pursue it, which means the Department of Justice won't pursue it. But at the same time, guys, there is, again, a little bit of hope. What are you guys saying down there? I'm scared of getting deported. I'm on a student visa from Kuwait. Okay, then I, sir, would suggest that there are plenty of others. Again, guys, just to let you know, I believe I'm on social posts in support of Palestine. This is fascism. It feels horrible, but I'm scared. Understandably so. The best thing I can tell you to do, if you are on a student visa, please, oh please, there's several sites out there that you can check on. I will bring one up at the end of the show to where you guys can look, to where you'll be able to look into it. Because again, protect yourself, especially from ICE. Like I said, I don't want to hold up the podcast because I can definitely point you in the direction of information and personnel that you can talk to. Understandably, to be scared is an understatement. ICE has been empowered to be the new Gestapo. This is true. So, but just hang out with me. I'll try to get you that information. But again, it's okay to be scared. But the point now we got to be informed. We have to step up because again, this is Trump basically showing his racist nature. Truly is. Hey, Patrick, this is the craziest, most crooked criminal BS I've ever seen in West Palestine in my life. Yeah. Only because he's been empowered. He has been empowered to do all this. And even more so, getting back to Elon Musk, he brought in somebody who is not even an American. He's from South America, has turned around and has caused thousands upon thousands of jobs lost. He is basically giving contracts to himself. And keep in mind, he still leads Tesla, SpaceX, and Starlink, his three companies. Now, granted, if you've been watching the news, Teslas have been on fire. Again, we here at How the Frack We Got Here, we do not support arsonists. We don't support terrorism of any kind. But at the same time, I can't say I don't feel bad that Teslas are either getting burned, returned, sold. I don't feel bad about it because here's how you hurt rich men. You hurt their bottom line because Tesla stock, which is his most greatest commodity, is worth half than what it used to be. Now he's only got Starlink and he's got SpaceX, which are his greatest assets, which probably leads to the next bit of information I have that Trump is pretty much saying Elon might be gone very soon.
You have some new reporting about Elon Musk and his White House role. What do we know?
Yeah, Kate, over the last several days, we've heard from President Trump in the Oval Office on Monday saying that Elon Musk would be going back to the private sector in the near future. Well, we're just hearing from a senior White House official that the president did tell his cabinet back during a meeting on March 24th that Elon Musk, who heads up Doge and, of course, has become a key figure in this administration, that he would be going back to the private sector. And the White House official tells me that this would be at the end of his 130 days as a special government employee. Of course, that would be in late March. So, of course, Kate, this comes on the heels of that special election in Wisconsin yesterday, where Democrats are seeing that as a win. Elon Musk, of course, spending millions, his PAC spending millions of dollars on that state Supreme Court race, and that his candidate lost significantly in that race. This all comes in that timing. But again, the White House saying that this was in the works before this, and this just simply is Elon Musk's role as a government employee.
Yeah, I'm calling bullshit on that. Well, the reason why I say it's bullshit, guys, is because Elon Musk is bleeding money. He is. The fact that his AI company had just acquired X, and yes, just a couple of days ago, just acquired X. What does that mean? He basically sold the company to himself in order to beef up the value of his other companies. So yes, the fact that Tesla's bleeding money, the fact that Starlink and that SpaceX might next be on the shelf, and that X, which again he did buy for $44 billion because of Tesla stock, may also be going down. So again, there is a reason why Musk is leaving Doge, because he might not have the financial power he once had to basically influence people. As you heard in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, he tried to influence, he lost. So there's the reason why he's leaving. At the same time, again, how in the world did we, and people are asking, how did we allow a man who was literally and figuratively unelected and yet had the ability to affect so many government workers? That's the question we really should be asking. Tweedledum and Tweedledope, pretty much. Starlink, he has 2/3 of all satellites in space. Imagine he weaponizes them against us. That's all the more reason why he really should be investigated, which currently he is by the SEC, but that's still being worked on. I'm sorry, what'd you say? How many viewers do you get? Good question. No idea. Was thinking of how I can help spread the message. Again, how the frack we got here, my friend. Let people know that we are available on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, on TikTok. We're everywhere, man. And all you have to do is spread the word. Even the link at the bottom that's showing the link at the bottom that's right here, spread that too. Because again, that's how you get the message out. Hey, every little bit helps. I'm not complaining. But thank you for that. But getting back to that for a second, guys. Elon himself is learning very quickly that when you play politics, you cannot turn around and simply think that you're going to come out of this unscathed. You're not. And you can tell because now there are protests happening at Tesla dealerships. Some places are burning. Again, we don't support arson on this show. But we understand. But again, Trump saying that he's leaving, we're going to finally see that. That's fine. That's great. It should happen because he never should have been there in the first place. But again, the one thing I will say about this, guys, before we get to our last segment, what did you guys say? I hope the Jewish groups will not label you as extremists because, like they labeled Shimon Burgum as a Hamas supporter, falsely and deported her. Again, here's the thing I will sit there and say about that, because that's basically what happened in Vietnam. There were people that were protesting the war, and the government didn't like it, so they tried to harass them. What are they going to do to me? And I say this not to be cocky. I don't say this to sound like I'm covered. Yes, I do enjoy my freedom of speech, which means that whatever I say, or I try to report in the most positive manner, yes, I am going to be liable for what happens next. It really is. So, with that being said, I do try to report the news in a positive manner, but I do also try to add some realism to it and also be honest about it. That's all I'm saying. But still, though, I can understand the support. I can understand the reason for that, because Israel and Palestine, when it deals with that, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Only Israel would claim that they're being persecuted when they're backed by the U.S. government and they're bombing Palestine. Just saying, looking at you, Netanyahu, because Netanyahu is the biggest welfare queen this side of the Middle East. But anyway, last story. Again, you guys know about TikTok. Remember, the simple fact about TikTok, guys, is that TikTok last year there was big uproar because the company that holds them, ByteDance, was always afraid, and the rumor was, and I say rumor because conservatives kept on saying this, that our information, our data would be available to the Chinese government. And I always said, well, the government hates competition because Facebook, or I should say Meta, also has IG and Snapchat. And at the same time, their data, or I should say your data, has already been available to the government. So I only chalked it up as the government hates competition. But that being said, guys, Trump and the CEO of ByteDance apparently must have some sort of deal, because there is a final TikTok proposal that's going to be out today. We do not have the actual information as far as who's going to be purchasing it. But guys, keep in mind, F47 had sat there and told the CEO of ByteDance that they had to be sold to an American company. Now, at this point, we don't know if it actually went through. We don't know actually who's the person over it. There's been rumors that there's been a conglomerate of people that have been coming forward saying they want to purchase TikTok. Right now, we are unsure. Now, that's the part I was going to get to, that part. Imagine if Elon purchased it. If Elon purchased it, I'm off. You know what? Here's the thing. Just like X, he bought X. And don't get me wrong, Twitter at one point was okay. And then Elon Musk purchased Twitter, and then Twitter became the cesspool of the internet. And I'm sorry, I left X a long time ago. I left X and went to Blue Sky only because, well, Blue Sky is great, but I will never go back to X. If Elon was a part of the group that did purchase or is in the process of purchasing TikTok, I'm off. I see no point to stay on there because I don't ever want to support or be a part of anything that Elon has got his hands on. I would rather see his companies either be bought out or go under. I would rather see him face SECs and fines in prison. That's what I want Elon to face. But in the off chance that he may purchase TikTok, that would be my last day on TikTok. It's an app. And don't get me wrong, at one point it was an app that everybody loved because, number one, it was an app that everybody could talk on. It was an app that you could actually share information. It was an app to where people actually became business owners and was selling things and was able to leave their 9-to-5s and were actually able to actually have a life, because let's be honest, a lot of us have 9-to-5s, myself included. I would love nothing more to be able to do something that takes me out of that rat race and gives me more time with my children. It does. But like I said, if Elon Musk does decide to buy it and we find out, then that's a whole other thing. But Ferto, I do want you to point. Before I get to our feel good segment, Ferto, I did want to bring this up with you because, again, I believe knowledge is power. And just in case you don't already know, I want to bring this up with you in case of what you're saying. And we said I don't want to go back to my country and be deported. Here's what I want you to do, sir, or ma'am. I don't know. I'm sorry. I should have asked your pronouns. I apologize. But I do want you to consider this. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but you may want to check out the National Immigration Justice Center because this is what I recommend for anybody that feels like you might be in danger or you might be deported. Please, oh please, check out this website because, one, you will get all the information that you need. You'll be able to get in touch with attorneys if you need them and be able to go from there as far as knowing your rights. So if you're unsure, National Immigrant Justice Center, I highly recommend that in your case. And hopefully you are still with us because, again, you definitely want to make sure, know the law. If there's one thing that if you got through hearing me tonight and want to take anything from me, know the laws of the land. You'll be better equipped because F-47 has no idea. He's only being told what he wants to hear. But we as Americans have to be equipped in knowing the law. That's why I said a long time ago, we used to have civics lessons. And things of that nature, but education went out the window. But hopefully that helps you. But with that being said, guys, we are going to go ahead and move on to our feel good segment. Again, I thank everybody that commented and really joined the conversation. Really appreciate that. But here on How the Frack We Got Here, we do talk about a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make use of your faith in humanity. But hey, it's hump day. Tomorrow's Thursday. It is my hope that we leave you out in some good vibes and good vibrations. And hopefully this next story will do that about a man, an African-American that has owned a bakery in Japan for the last 30 years. And his story is honestly amazing.
Kyle's Good Finds, I just say I make an authentic American cake. These are authentic American recipes. Some people say that they can't find some things that I make anyplace else, like pecan pie. They describe mine as the best carrot cake, something I don't say, but other people say. The only job I had in the States was photo finishing. I used to process film. While living in Manhattan, I got obsessed with Japanese culture. Very soon after going to a sushi restaurant for the first time, I woke up the next day and I wanted to learn everything about Japan. So I started teaching myself the language and the culture. That's how simple it was. I just wanted to live here. I didn't think about what I was going to do. So people thought I had a lot of money when I came here. In actuality, I only had $300 when I came here. I'm grooming my son to take over, and he'll have other ideals, and I help him achieve those ideals. He may want to get bigger, but I just like cooking in general. I'm most happy baking before the shop opens up, just being here by myself. People come in, they ask me for business advice, and I tell them, just start something small that you like and enjoy that's not going to take a big overlay of money. Maybe try a pop-up first. Don't be afraid to try something new. But I try to instill on them that if the business fails, that's just a failure on the business. Just try something else. It's not a failure on you.
I thought that was cool. I mean, a guy who did not know anything about baking goes to Japan on a one-way ticket, opens up a bakery that has now been going on for 3 decades. You can't beat a story like that, and I do agree. Some of that stuff did look good. But that being said, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this podcast. I do thank everybody that liked, that watched, that let people know this is live. I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Some shameless plugging before I do get out of here, guys. I do want to talk about APR TV or alwayspressrecord.com. Why? Because my show, How the Frack We Got Here, can be seen on there. You can check them out on the Roku app or Amazon Fire TV or on the websites at alwayspressrecord.com. I would certainly appreciate that. BlurredStation.com. If you are a blurred and is looking for a place to where you can find blurred content, I'm talking movies, television, animation shows, things of that nature. Definitely check out BlurredStation.com, guys. If you do feel so inclined, please hit the Join Now button. And from the Join Now button, guys, select the Bird's Eye View Offending membership. Select my name there, Black Spartan. It is $10.99 a month to stream Blurred Station. $10.99 a month. You cannot beat that with a stick. It is exactly what we need as far as the table to where our content, our viewership, and most importantly, our dollars go to. So definitely check out BlurredStation.com. Now, I always talk about runforoffice.org. Why? Because, again, if you ever wondered how these crazy people got in office, how Moms for Liberty got in office, how these other idiots got in office, somebody had to run, somebody had to vote for them, and that's how they got in. If you're unsure or you feel the call to public service, whether it's local or national, definitely check out runforoffice.org. It'll go through the entire process of how you can get signed on in your area, hopefully to run and get elected and hopefully make a difference. I cannot stress this enough, guys, that in this day and age, we can no longer sit on the sidelines. Whether you serve, whether you like me, you want to talk about the news, or just being an actor. We need to actually have actors in the field. Runforoffice.org can help you with that. As for myself, guys, How the Frack We Got Here, all together can be found on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. Like, share, and subscribe. Spread the word, guys. We are every Wednesday, 8:30-ish to when we end. So again, I will always do my best to, and again, the mission of How the Frack We Got Here is to provide the news, to really talk about what's going on, and to have an honest conversation. Hopefully, it empowers you to do the same. Is what my goal is. But definitely check us out. Again, like, share, subscribe, and again, we can't do any of this without you. So. With that being said, guys, the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply trying to give you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs from our past. We're making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, and maybe one day, just one day, electing our first black woman to be the first Madam President. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go about our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, How the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Protect your peace. Check on your strong friends. Don't doom scroll. Do something that makes you happy. And if you're actually able to make somebody else happy, do it. The world can use more of it. But have a good night, guys. Stay safe. Stay strong. Stand tall.